we are going to be going over a variety of different information, from the event guidelines to the submission process to insurance requirements. But before we dive in, I just wanted to let you all know that this is a recorded call. When you join, you're automatically on mute. So we ask that you participate through the chat or the question and answer session as part of the functionality of the platform. This meeting will also be live streamed to DDOT's Facebook page, and then we'll be posting it online within about 2 weeks of this meeting date. So there's a variety of different ways that you can access this platform again. If you have any technical support during the meeting, feel free to call 202-309-3491. Also, can everyone hear me?
Coming through loud and clear.
Okay, just making sure. Great. So yeah, if you have any technical assistance, feel free to call that number. Yeah, go ahead and get started. So Parking Day, what is this event? We've been hosting Parking Day for several years now, but it is an annual event held throughout the US and abroad that occurs on the third Friday of September. This experiment started in San Francisco in 2005 when local residents basically paid the fees for a parking meter for the day, put out a mini parklet as a form of protest to state how we should be rethinking about our public space and reclaiming it from cars for people, and remixing the space in a way that is quick and experimental and is able to showcase the benefits of having spaces for people over vehicles. Although the event is temporary, it offers lasting effects because it helps us shift the way that public space is perceived and utilized, even if it's just over one day. So we started the program in 2013. We started off pretty strong with 21 parklets spread throughout 3 wards. And every year we've tried to grow this event bigger and better. So you can see we've even increased it to 35 pop-up parklets at one point. And in 2019, we almost made it to all 8 wards. We hit 7 out of the 8. So we're getting closer. We're trying to spread this as far and wide as possible. We had a bit of a setback in 2020, as many of us did. During COVID, we still hosted the event, but now we're hoping to kick it back into high gear. We're really encouraging pop-up parklets in wards 7 and 8, where we've historically had lower participation. So if you are interested in hosting in those wards, feel free to shoot me an email, and I'll give you my contact information at the end with your ideas, and I can share mine as well of how we can engage into those wards more. So what is Parking Day? What are the design guidelines? What does it look like? For this year, we'll be hosting on September 17th, which is the Friday. And so that is the day that everyone will be able to come out, bring their materials, and set up their mini pop-up parklet for a few hours. So as part of that, we ask that you will be submitting a permit through TOPS that showcase your design and your concept. So what I'll be going through is the information that's in our guidelines. If you go to our website, which is, how do I do this without triggering? Let's see. There we go. So if you go to our website, which is dot.dc.gov/page/parking-day-dc. This is our Parking Day website, or you can just Google Parking Day DC and this should show up. And this tells you about our event schedule, so Friday from 9 to 4 p.m. And also the links to everything that I'll be discussing today through this presentation. So if you have any questions, please come here. We have the insurance provisions, the event guidelines, the TOPS application process, and then we have the link to last year's information session, so we'll update that once this is complete. So if you go to our event guidelines, this is what I'll be discussing now. Here's where you can see all the information that I'll be going through. And it's in just written format with the updated dates and all of this information. So back to the presentation. What we'll need to see from you is a description of the location of your park. And I'll go over what locations are eligible as part of this program on the next slide, but also an understand of how you'll be using the space during the event. What activities are you thinking about? The types of materials that will be used, and the barriers that you're proposing. We'll need to know the specific address for the park, and as well as just a brief sketch of what you're thinking. And I can show you what that looks like. It's very rudimentary, trying to make it accessible to as many people. Doesn't need to be like an engineered site plan at all. You can draw it on to a template that we actually created for you to use if you'd like. We'll need to see all items and design elements that you'll be using on that site plan, including some safety buffers, which I'll go into and show on the next page. We'll also need to see a parking day release form, which is included in the guidelines that I had just previously showed. You'll need to sign that and fill that out and submit it as part of your application. There is some insurance requirements, which Robert Preston here from the Office of Risk Management will be able to go into as well. And then once you have those documents, you'll be able to apply for a TOPS permit. I highly recommend that before submitting a permit, you reach out to me. Let me know the location that you're interested in, maybe give me an idea of what you're thinking of the activities you're thinking of using and the barriers that you have. My email is Kimberly, spelled Kimberly, .Vaca, V like Victor, ACCA, @dc.gov. And I'll also put that in the chat at the end. But that is a great way to talk to me about what you're thinking, and I can give you some preliminary feedback before you go through the formal process. So where are the spaces that you can apply for parking day? Where can your pop-up parklets go? They must be on a metered street. So you need a metered parking space, as shown in the example here. It should also be mid-block, meaning that they can't be right next to an intersection. For safety reasons, we'll need them pushed back. They also can't be on streets that are like rush hour restrictions or are within a loading zone or of any sort of time of day restriction where at some point in the day that curb space is needed for a different use. We also don't allow parking day to happen adjacent to the DC streetcar on 8th Street. So that's not eligible. But ultimately, we will have final approval of what spaces are eligible and which are not. These are good guidelines, though, to have a good understanding of the spaces that this could occur. So for example, I just found a space on Google Maps. This space in front of Harris Teeter in Southeast would be a great space to host. You're right in front of a place that a lot of people use. There's a little plaza here. It's metered parking, as you can see through metered parking space, and there's no time of day restrictions on this corridor. So you could set up a parking space or a pop-up parklet here as just one example. Some general activity guidelines. You cannot have no commercial or overt advertising can occur in the park. All activities should be confined to the parking space itself. It cannot have you spilling over into the roadway or onto the sidewalk. We need to make sure that vehicles and pedestrians can still traverse safely in their areas. You cannot set up your parklet and then leave. It needs to have a person there throughout the entire event to make sure that nothing unsafe is occurring throughout the day. I would highly recommend also keeping a copy of your approved permit and site plan on hand during the event. Those in case a police officer comes or someone's asking you for verification to make sure that you've been approved for this, I would have those handy and ready. Okay, so what is permitted and what is not permitted in these spaces? The barrier can be made from a wide variety of items. We're actually the most flexible about barriers for parking day. If you've followed our streetery program, that's already currently pretty flexible, but parking day is even more so. So you can surround your parking space with potted plants, fences, railings, boxes, pallets, milk crates, traffic cones or poles, straw bales, or any sort of element that you think would provide a strong barrier around the space that you're using as a temporary pop-up park. Just note that the barrier must be continuous and it cannot have gaps. So what does that mean? If you wanted to have traffic cones, for example, as your barrier, you would need to have some sort of connection, whether it's streamers or a chain or rope that connects those cones to one another. And those cones may be spaced apart, but they can only be spaced apart with a maximum of 2 feet between them. So make sure that your barriers are continuous. There are no gaps for people to openly walk from the parklet into the roadway. The barrier should also be at least 1 foot tall and no taller than 5 feet. So we don't want huge walls coming in to our parking spaces because that creates a visual impairment for both the people in your parklet, but also drivers and pedestrians. For another requirement, you may actually apply for multiple parking day spaces. If you wanted 1 parking space, that works. You can also do 2 or 3 or 4. So you can really have a huge space if that's something you're interested in. We just ask that the end space is protected by either a parked vehicle or some other item as a safety buffer. So you can see here in the bottom corner, the example of the parking day parklet. You can see their cones and their chairs. And then right before it, they had someone park a vehicle there to protect this space from this vehicle approach. Other items that could be used if you don't have a car, many of us in DC don't, could be a bike rack, large crates, or large planters, or even if there's a curb bump out in the roadway. Which I can show you if anyone has any questions about that, that will suffice as well. You, however, cannot use chairs or any other sort of item as like tables that might be used as a seating or gathering space for people. This needs to be an area where there are no people. It's just for protection. Okay, so what does that site design look like? What would you ultimately submit to us to show? Here is a template that we include in our guidelines that show your parking day space, just the parameters. So you can see here, generally our parking spaces are about 8 by 20 feet on this street. And this shows the required 2-foot buffer around all of the edges. So here you would draw in your buffer in this area and you'd describe what that barrier is. And then you can draw in the type of activities, whether it's tables, chairs, maybe you'll have some art, maybe you'll have some sort of activity. Make sure you just draw that into this area on the site plan. And then here it shows the parking space immediately before the park. Make sure you write or draw in, you can just write car, you don't have to draw a car, what type of barrier or item you'll use to protect the space as well. Make sure the barrier goes all the way around your parklet so it creates a sense of enclosure. These 2-foot buffers are noted. And essentially that's it. You can see here the sidewalk at the bottom. It's very, very easy to just kind of try to make it as simple as possible to just fill in the spaces of the site plan. But I'm happy to help if you have any questions about what you should show, or if you want to send me an email your initial drawing, I'll be happy to let you know if anything's missing. Okay, so I thought it'd be a fun exercise to show some things to do and some things not to do. So here are 2 fun concepts. You can see there's like a pop-up chessboard on the left, and on the right is like outdoor dining area for people to casually come sit down, maybe work, have some lunch. So 2 different concepts, but there's one that's done correctly and one that's done incorrectly. So the one on the left is incorrect because the posts are more than 2 feet apart. You can see here that the flexi post, this is a type of barrier that could work, but they just would need to add more in between these. The other thing is they're not linked by a rope or a similar item. You can see here on the right that they have spaced their posts accordingly, and then they've also tied a streamer type of situation along the edges so that people cannot openly walk in and out of the space. This creates a distinct closure and barrier from the parklet space to the roadway on the edges. You can see here, anyone could just walk back and forth. The other thing to note is that they did not space the 2 feet, the required 2-foot buffer from the travel lane. So they put their posts right up to the travel lane. We'd need them to scooch it in about 2 feet. So probably right about where this activity starts to be compliant with our parking day guidelines. So that's kind of a quick visual example of what to do and then what not to do when it comes to the barriers. Some other examples that you can see. So here people got pretty creative with different types of plants, which is great. Here you can see they put up some sort of vegetated wall with a tent to showcase, their design concept with some chairs. This, I would say, just be careful. This looks like it might be more than 5 feet potentially. So this would likely need to be lowered, but this concept is generally great. And here you can see there are planters as well as buckets with some posts to create a continuous barrier as well. Other examples that I thought were really fun. So here they used some wooden fencing. There's a stationary bicycle for people to practice or, get some biking in. They have a water cooler because sometimes September can be pretty hot. Some bench seating. Here's another outdoor dining area where they put up fencing, barriers, balloons. And then this is another example where they opened it up, added some vegetation, some color. They used some crates. And I thought that was a really nice addition to public space. So as I mentioned before, in addition to that site plan, you'll need that release form, a certificate of liability insurance. Once you get all those documents, you'll need to submit a TOPS application, and then you may contact me once you submit. So now insurance requirements. And Robert, if you want to unmute yourself and introduce yourself, go ahead.
Sure. First of all, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Great, thanks. So again, good afternoon. My name is Robert Preston. I work for the Office of Risk Management, and just want to quickly review the insurance requirements for this event. It's the same as it has been for the past couple of years, so no surprises on that end. But for those of you who are new, the basic requirements is really just to have a general liability policy in place per occurrence, only $500,000, and for an aggregate $1 million. It should be pretty easy to get. If you have any questions about that, let me know. Just basic requirements beyond that is that the carrier, the insurance company that has that underwrites the insurance should be of a certain rating. So that's an A or 8 or higher. Basically, just means that they're solvent and can respond to any claims. Then also, if you are using somebody else to set up your space, I don't think I've heard of that in recent times, but if you are using if you're hiring somebody to do that for you, then just make sure that person has insurance as well in case something happens. And finally, the last requirement is really that the certificate holder needs to be the government of the District of Columbia for your certificate of insurance, and that the district's also named as additional insured. And finally, that there's a waiver of subrogation. And all that information, if you just provide that to your insurance agent, will be quick and easy to do, and should take no more than 5 minutes or no more than a day, depending how busy your agent is. So if you want to go to the next slide, please. Thank you. I know this is a little tiny, but you'll see it in the presentation that's posted. It's just an example of the certificate of insurance and where what it should look like when you present it to us, obviously with your organization's name under the insured piece, and then all the relevant information concerning your coverage. But if you have any questions, yeah, just again, just let us know in the chat or in the question and answer session, as Kimberly had indicated. But that's it on my end. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. Okay, so now to process. These slides, there's a separate on the Parking Day website. Oh, here, this is the 2021 Parking Day TOPS application guidelines, and this is where I'll be discussing next. This goes through a step-by-step process for TOPS. So TOPS stands for the Transportation Online Permitting System. make this a little bigger for everyone. This is the platform that we use to approve public space permits for District of Columbia. The good thing about this process for you all is that it's free, which is great. We used to require you to participate because you're taking over a parking meter to pay a parking meter fee for the hours of use, which can rack up. That is no longer the case. So this will be a free parking meter fee for you all to participate from this year onward. Which is pretty phenomenal. But we understand that TOPS isn't the easiest system to navigate. So I'll be going over some highlights of things to look out for, but feel free to go to this guidelines, and it goes step by step to tell you, here's what you need to click, here's what to note, don't do this, put in this, and it hopefully should walk you through the process pretty easily. So let's go through some highlights. So applications to participate in Parking Day are due to TOPS by Friday, August 27th. If you can get your application in by that date, feel free to submit. We just cannot guarantee that it will be approved in time and for the event. So that's our hard deadline of that you'll be pretty much guaranteed to participate as long as the documents you submit are sufficient. But if you can't make that, just note that you can apply, it just might not be approved in time. The applications will open the beginning of July. So they're not open now, but we can start taking them in July 1st. And then once they should be approved very quickly throughout the TOPS platform. So the type of permit you'll need to apply for is an other special events permit. Do not apply for a parklet permit, as this will trigger a more rigorous review, and this could require you to reapply and start the process again. So make sure that you're applying for a temporary occupancy permit, and then it's called other special events. For step 6, when you're talking about the parking location, make sure you enter the closest street address you can for your park. And when prompted, describe the actual location along the curb. This is very important if your space is managed by a multi-space meter. If you are an organization who's sponsoring multiple parks at multiple locations, make sure you submit a parking day application for each separate location. So if you want to host 3 different parking day parking permits, you'll need to submit 3 different permits. Also for the dates and hours, once you put in the date and location, make sure it is 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. as the start and time. If this is not correct, we'll need you to submit a new application, as those are the only hours that we're able to have this temporary event on the 17th. So make sure those are very key to put in, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. The other thing to note are the parking meters. So you will not reach this page if you did not select a location with a meter. So that's why we said you need a metered parking space to participate. So if this got messed up, just restart your application and make sure the address is correct. And when you put in your parking meter ID, sometimes there's some confusion as to what is that number. In the visual on the screen, don't put in the 5-digit number. That's the pay by phone parking number. That's the incorrect number. The parking space meter number is 8 digits, as shown from these 2 pictures here. So make sure that's the number you put in. Also, make sure you select no for all radio buttons for steps 8, 11, and 12. If you don't, that'll trigger a more rigorous review from other departments and divisions and add time to this, which is not necessary. They don't need to be reviewing this type of application, so make sure to select no. Step 13 at the very end is basically when we ask you to send out those documents that we were talking about. So that includes your park concept, so the written description of what you'll be doing, describe to us the activities you'll have. We'll need a site design, so that template that I walked through that you can just draw on and add in what you'll be doing, the parking day release form, and then the certificate of liability insurance that Robert went over. These can be uploaded as separate files or as a single PDF. Make sure it is a PDF though, that is required. So make sure it's on a Word document or anything else, all PDFs. And then make sure you hit upload document after selecting the file you'd like to include. You cannot submit these documents in person. This was a kind of concern before COVID. We're still not in the office yet. So definitely not now, but you have to go through TOPS and online. And then under the permittee owner information, just type parking day 2021 for the event name. This will let our technicians know what type of permit this is. It's for parking day, it's a temporary event, and then put in your direct contact information. We may need to call you if we have any questions or concerns about your design and need to talk further. And finally, at the end, you'll just want to email me. This lets me know that you submitted a permit for parking day, and I can keep track, making sure that I get these reviewed efficiently and effectively, and that everyone who is a reviewer on these types of permits is aware and able to put in their reviews. Once you get your permit, so once we all review it and approve it, essentially you'll need to pick up emergency no parking signs. Those can be picked up from the permit center located 1100 4th Street Southwest. But you'll also get directions for where else you can pick those up. Remember that they must be posted in your space 24 hours in advance of the event. So you need to put these emergency no parking signs in the location that you're going to have your parklet, because that lets the community know, hey, I should not park here because my car will be towed if it stays. But if you don't get those out 24 hours in advance, you won't be able to have towing capabilities for the event. It's really important because then you can't put your parklet in. So make sure you get these out there 24 hours. And essentially, you'll also have a copy of your permit, and that permit says, hey, I'm hosting a parking day event here at this location from 9 to 4, and this is a permitted activity that's been approved by the District Department of Transportation. So make sure you have those parking signs, a copy of your permit, and a copy of your site plan with you. And that is it for the presentation. I can go through the chat first, and then if you have any questions you want to ask out loud, what we ask is that you just raise your hand, and Molly will be able to call on you at the end, and then we can chat. So let me open the chat and see what we have in here. I don't see any questions so far. Are there any questions from the audience where you'd like to raise your hand and ask in person?
To raise your hand, if you're joining on the browser, I believe you will click the three-dot icon and select raise hand. If you're on the WebEx application, click the participants button in the bottom right corner. And at the bottom right corner of the panel that appears, there should be a raise hand icon. If you're joining us over the phone, you can press *3 to raise your hand, and then we can unmute you. Thank you. Let's see. Lauren Knight would like to make a statement. Oh, yes, and feel free to drop it in the chat if you cannot find the raise hand. Lauren, I'm unmuting you.
Yes, sir. How you doing? Sorry for the late arrival, but I didn't receive the invite. How's everybody doing?
Oh, sorry, Lauren. Hi.
Well, I just wanted to piggyback on what Kimberly just said about the signage and the permits. It's more than just posting the signs in order to get towing service or relocation service from Department of Public Works, Park Enforcement Division. Once you post your signs, you must upload photos of those signs into the TOP system, which will be intercepted by Department of Public Works for verification. Upon their receipt of your photos, they will email a confirmation or request ID number for you to utilize on the date of the event. In the event, you have to have vehicles removed. So it is very important that photos of your signage has been uploaded into the TOP system. That's it.
Thanks, Lauren. Any other questions?
I think there's a couple of question icons and raised hands in the chat.
Oh.
Or under the participants list.
Someone
Excuse
me. Someone actually wrote in the chat to me, sorry if I missed this, where can we access this presentation?
So this presentation will be posted, let me close this online on our Parking Day website. So as shown here, if you go to dot.dc.gov/page/parking-day-DC, or if you just Google Parking Day DC, this should also come up. But this is the website. Right now, we have a link to last year's information session, but we'll be updating that within the next 2 weeks with this year's information session with most up-to-date information.
I dropped the link to
But
this in the chat as well.
you can access the 2021 Parking Day event guidelines and TOPS application, which has more detailed information of essentially what we went through today.
Awesome, and I dropped that link in the chat too. And Robert was correct. We have one raised hand. I am not certain how to pronounce your name, so I apologize if I butcher it. I will unmute you now. Dulce name. I don't.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for that pronunciation. I'm Dulce Naime from DPR, the Department of Parks and Recreation. And I have a question about the insurance. It was for Robert. I shared it in the questions only with him. And it was about who managed that, if you know who is the right person to manage that within agencies. Is generally the legal counsel by any chance?
So if you are a DC government agency and you're participating in Parking Day, then you just go to our website, orm.dc.gov, and under the insurance tab, you will see a request for an insurance letter, and you'll need to upload that into the top system that you've been approved for the event.
Okay, I will probably mail you later to ask you more details. And another question I had is about, you mentioned that we cannot do any marketing, but last year in 2020, we participated in one Parking Day that was organized by Mount Vernon Triangle Bit, and they did certain activities that were like, they were not promoting, but they were talking about projects, ongoing projects, and we are planning kind of doing the same this year, like talking about what we are doing in DPR, what we, for example, we are doing a master plan right now. Is that allowed? Can we
Yeah,
talk
so
about
that's a great clarification. So you can put up DPR, you can put up signs with your organization because you are sponsoring this park. You just can't sell items in your pop-up parklet, right? We don't want this to be like a
market. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, feel free to highlight your programs, your projects, all of the fun activities that you all do throughout the year. Yeah, I think a great idea would be to be next to the community center or in areas that don't have access to a community center, or areas that would benefit from hearing about these types of activities are great for parking because temporary and it gives them access to information. So we, for example, last year at DDOT, we actually hosted a Parking Day pop-up parklet, which was really fun. And we highlighted a new art program that we started, and we showcased a mural in the roadway that we were painting. And then we gave out information about the program and how people could participate. So it's a really good way to test out new concepts or ideas that you have.
Okay, sounds great.
push out.
Thank you very much, Kimberly.
Mhm.
Thank you.
So I think it's difficult to see, but I think a Mike Kwan put in a question mark.
Yes, Mike asked, sorry, I missed the beginning and not sure if this was covered. Could the space be used to sell or give away food/beverages?
No. Yeah, that's the quick answer to that. If you're interested in something like that, we do have a streetery program. If you are a restaurant owner or like to partner with a restaurant, our streetery program that started last year in June as part of COVID, you can work on creating a streetery. Those last more than just one day. This can be a week if you'd like, or up to the end of the public health emergency, which is still ongoing right now to July 25th. I'm also the coordinator for that program, so you can reach out to me directly to discuss options there. But yeah, for parking day, no selling of items allowed. Okay. I don't see anything else in the chat. And then, Jay, it looks like I think you already asked your question. Okay. Well, I think we can probably end this early then. As we mentioned, feel free to reach out to Lauren, Robert, or myself, about any questions you may have about this process. And please check out our website. It has all of the information that you may need. Oh, I just got a new question. Can people bring a lunch or snack? Yes. So if you want to put out tables and chairs and have people, come by, you can make it a pop-up office space for the day. That's a really great idea that will get people out of their houses because a lot of people are still working from home. But yes, you just cannot sell lunch and snacks in the parking day space, but you can facilitate people to eat and gather in those areas if you'd like. So great question.
Yeah, and Kimberly, just to clarify, not just sell, but you can't give away food or drinks either, right?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure. Thanks.
But yeah, I think a good partnership that we've had in the past is, well, the streetery program exists now, and so that helps restaurants. But we've had people set up outdoor dining spaces next to restaurants where people can order food, get it to go, and then sit down and enjoy it in this new park space, which is great. Okay, a few new questions. Can we give out swag like shirts, water bottles, masks? Yes, that's happened in the past for sure. So people have given out buttons, stickers, anything that, kind of helps, I guess, promote the day. So feel free if you feel to do that. We also, this year, and it reminds me of a really good point, we'll be sending out, if you participate, some social media templates for you to use if you're interested in marketing on your social media platforms that talk about parking day. And we'll be posting shortly some myths about parking day and myth busters. So be on the lookout for that you can share in your platforms too if you want to spread the news about this event. But yeah, feel free to sell swag, or not sell, sorry, to give out swag. Okay. Well, as I mentioned, we will be posting this online. It is also on our YouTube channel. And oh, okay, one more question. Cleaning process. What time does it start? No worries. It's better to ask now than later. Okay, so the event starts at 9 a.m. and ends at 4. So your parking space will be eligible to be used starting at 9. Typically it takes anywhere between half an hour to an hour for people to set up their space. So, but you know, however long that takes, you have the space until 4 p.m. The space needs to be totally vacated by 4 so that it can be used for on-street parking again. So make sure how long you need to take everything down, just build that into your time. Cleaning process, sweep, pick up trash, make sure you leave the space as you found it. You don't need to do any like heavy duty pressure washing or anything like that. But just make sure that you don't leave anything in the public right of way once you're done. So pretty simple on that. At the end, you will be sent, here's some parking day comments. You will be sent a link to this questionnaire to talk about the parking day session. If you don't mind, just please filling it out. It's just going to ask about generally how the meeting went, whether it was helpful. It should take just only a few moments of your time. You can go to rebrand.ly/parking day, and that'll take you right here, or scan this Scantron. But thank you all so much for attending. Feel free to email me and Robert and Lauren at any time about the process and documents that you may need. And I think that really covers all we have, because we don't have any more questions in the chat.
There was one last question in the Q&A that just popped up.
Okay.
Mike asked, if we want multiple parking spaces, can we send just one set of forms for all the spaces?
Yes. So if you want to have like 2 or 3 parking spaces that are right next to each other as one parklet, that's just one application. That's a great question. So you would show on that form the length of the parking space and the number of parking spaces you're proposing. So the template in the document might not work for you because that's really just for one space, but feel free to draw something that looks similar. That shows how many parking spaces you're showing.
Hi, Kimberly, it's Robert. Just
Great
to
question.
follow up, if somebody wants to do spaces across town, like different wards, how does that work for them? Like same organization, but I want one parking space.
Yeah, so those are separate permit applications. So for the example I just went through, that's one location, right? You're on one street block, they're adjacent to each other. But if you wanted to have separate locations, you'll need separate applications because they are triggering different reviews. It's different needs, different like public space asks. So yes, separate applications.
Great. Thank you.
Great question. Any other hidden questions? Okay. All right. Well, thank you all so much for coming. Hopefully this was really helpful, and be on the lookout. Like I said, July 1st is when you can start submitting those permits. So let me know if you have any questions, and thank you all so much. Hope you have a great day.